welcome to the reintroduction of Dear Michelle Obama, the podcast, aka Dear Michelle. I am your host, Anonymous. In the last episode, titled The Incredible Mr. C, I discussed how our landlord artificially depressed our rent to permit my family to remain in our apartment. In this episode, titled Hello Again, I explain my absence. Here, take a listen. One quick administrative note, I want to thank the Academy of Interactive and Visual Arts for awarding Episode 4, titled Breadcrumbs, a 2020 Communicator Award. Communicator Awards honor communication professionals throughout the world. Dear Michelle won an award of distinction in a field that included ESPN Films, Morgan Stanley Financial Services, and Cornell University Alumni Affairs and Development. A huge shout out to each of the winners and participants. Before I get started, there are some people that I need to thank. Justin at Reliable Sounds for his incredible post-production work. I would also like to thank Lafayette Harris Jr., the world-renowned jazz pianist, whose music makes people want to listen to my podcast. I'd also like to thank superfan Sonia Robinson for finding a way to contact me to make sure I get those episodes out. Finally, I want to thank each of you, my dedicated listeners and fans, for taking time out of your busy days to listen to me tell my crazy but award-winning stories. I'm honored and deeply humbled. Thank you. As many of you know, I stepped away from my podcast to permit the country to deal with the global pandemic brought about by the coronavirus. Then George Floyd died, and people all over the world came together to protest his death. Because of those two events, I thought it best for me to halt the release of upcoming episodes. My struggle is this. The upcoming episodes involve tragedies I actually contemplated not sharing. I'm not ashamed of my story. Thanks to dear friends and fans, I know that the stories I share have a place in the world. My audience is growing, and people all over the world are starting to hear me. People in places like Australia, Spain, England, and throughout the African continent. This means that where my stories go, what follows are the stories of the people I discuss on my podcast. And since so many of my stories involve African Americans, the stories of African Americans travel too. My hope is that in telling the stories of my uncles in the episode titled Trees, and in telling the story of the incredible Mr. C, people get a fair and balanced look at my version of the African American experience. But if I'm honest, I'm not sure. In the months since COVID-19 quarantined the world, I have been called horrible names online. I've ignored 99% of it, but I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that the 1% that gets through hurts. Now, I wouldn't feel too sorry for me. I don't always go high when they go low. In fact, sometimes when they go low, I go lower. I am, after all, my grandmother's daughter, and she told me to hit 'em and hit 'em hard. Still, the whole thing makes me sad. If I hit and they hit, we both end up with scars. The bravest thing I've ever done is to make the decision to again tell my podcast. COVID-19 and social protest aside, I likely would have taken a hiatus anyway. But during my time away, I began to have conversations with people I love and respect, asking if my telling these stories is appropriate or even fair. Each of the people I spoke to gave me an honest and heartfelt answer. They implored me to continue to produce and write the podcast. One of them told me that while I may speak of one instance of domestic violence, my words may give 5 people the courage to leave a situation in which they're being abused. Another told me that I have a platform to speak out about mental illness in the African American community, and that I would do a huge disservice to those who need mental health support if I don't tell how my life was impacted by the severely mental ill people that I encountered. Tell your story, he said, and it reminded me of when my grandmother would make me stand in the center of her living room, quiet my family, and tell me to speak up because people need to hear my words. I consider myself to be brave, but I don't think I've ever been more brave than when I made the decision to again tell my story. I warn you in advance that the next few episodes are not necessarily easy to hear, but I now understand that they are completely necessary. In the first episode, Portraits and Recipes, I declared that I'm not responsible for other people's opinions and biases, and this remains largely true. However, my choice to tell my stories carries with it a huge responsibility, and it's one that I do not take lightly. What you see in my early episodes is the life of a young girl who experiences unbearable pain as I search to find love in a world that does not always seem willing or capable of returning that love. Thankfully, my story does not end with my pain. Mine is the story of triumph over defeat, of victory over never-ending obstacles. My story is one of forgiveness. Dear Michelle is the story of courage in the face of Herculean obstacles, as told with a blend of humor and tremendous compassion. It is not just letters to Michelle Obama, they are love letters to my younger self as I inch ever closer to my version of the American dream. I hope you join me. I hope you listen. I hope you learn. I hope I inspire you. I hope you laugh at me as much as you do with me. To the Black and brown people who listen, I love you. I see you. I see you whole and full of life. Your spirit and tenacity continue to inspire me. And to my fans and listeners of all shapes, sizes, hues, and persuasions, welcome home. Your texts, calls, and messages inspire me to do better and to be better. Are you ready? I am. Thank you for listening to the reintroduction of the award-winning Dear Michelle Obama, the podcast, aka Dear Michelle. Please be sure to like, click, comment, and share this podcast with your friends and family. Join me next time for episode 14, titled Liars, Thieves, and Junior Satan. Until next time, bye-bye.